2024 was the first election where the party chose Israel over winning, but 2026 will be the first one where Democratic voters writ large know that that is the choice that the party is making. The results will show this. These guys are absolutely throwing the fucking midterm elections. We have an opportunity to overperform in the midterms if we lean in to the base's desires, and we have a capacity to underperform if we choose to oppose it. And Democrats, by and large, backed by AIPAC, some backed by J Street, have decided, fuck it. Let's make the conversation about how toxic this dude is. It doesn't matter what you think personally. What matters is what the media narrative is. And the media narrative is already set. The amount of condemnations that you deliver in my direction is not going to salvage anything. You should just tackle the fucking cynical framing here at its root and be like, why are we talking about this? I know why we're talking about this, because you don't want to talk about Donald Trump, because you can't talk about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the president. Why are we holding a Twitch streamer to a higher standard than the motherfucking president? Remember, my point is not that I'm this like profoundly popular figure and I have a legion of adoring fans that are just going to get really mad and refuse to participate in electoral democracy or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is every moment that you talk about me and attack me is a moment where you're basically attacking yourself, because the Republicans are going to turn around and say, this guy's a lifelong Democrat, which is fucking true. They can also point to the numerous instances where you have courted my attention in my community, which is also true. This is no different to the Democrats doing a messaging bill disavowing socialism and communism. And Democrats love those messaging bills. It's very stupid. How many times have I talked about those messaging bills and how stupid those messaging bills are? Because you're basically signing off on your own demise. They are going to call you a socialist regardless. They are going to call you a communist regardless. Just fucking push for decent policy. Have some decency. Have some backbone. When you sign off on a messaging bill that says, oh, we as Democrats disavow communism, disavow socialism, that doesn't cause the Republican Party to go, oh, wow, I guess we were wrong about these folks. No, it caused you to look fucking stupid. You know what Republicans do when you sign off on those messaging bills? They go, look at how dumb these guys are. They're commies and they think they can dupe us into believing that they're not commies. But even they recognize that communism is a danger, which is what they are, communists. That's what you're doing when you go, I disavow Hasan Piker, I disavow Hasan Piker. You're fucking stupid. Republicans, no matter how toxic, repulsive, odious their ideology is, no matter how violent their policy prescriptions are, no matter how disastrous their policy agenda is, will never do this. They will never fucking hit their own media people, because they understand deep down inside that this is an organic development that they've personally funded themselves in most circumstances. I'm doing this for fucking free 99, dipshit. I don't get paid by anybody. I am the one who does the fundraising. I am the one who is spending my own money to fly around the fucking country to activate under 45-year-olds to participate in primaries. And you got a bunch of dipshit Israel First Democrats running around being like, we don't want this. It doesn't matter what you want, dumbass. What matters is what the voters want. What matters is what the masses want. It doesn't fucking matter if you go, oh, I disavow Hassan. Politics and winning is about addition, not subtraction. Shut the fuck up, okay? Stop hitting your left flank so that you can be a nice little puppy to your fucking big donors. Do your goddamn jobs. Lock the fuck in. Lock in. The base despises Israel. The base despises data centers. The base wants to tax the super wealthy. The base wants healthcare for all. And it's not just the base in the Democratic Party that want these things. There is cross-party endorsements on these policies. Republicans like some of these policies. Independents overwhelmingly like some of these policies. The problem is Democrats want to run against their left. They don't want to run against the right. They want to be Republicans. It's that simple. And they did this in 2024, and they're doing this once again. And it's unbelievably frustrating, but I'm glad, because I do see a lot of regular folks seeing this reality and going, why are they focusing on this? Are you insane? And many of which are recognizing that the reason why there is this hyper focus is because of Israel, is because of the factional battle taking place within the Democratic Party with those who oppose Israel, those who want to hold Israel accountable for genocide, those who actually want to cut funds to Israel, versus those who want to maintain a pro-Israel stance even if 90% of the voters do not want that. So they're not mad at me, they're mad at all of us, and perhaps more importantly, they're mad at democracy. That is what they're mad at. That's why I thought the conversation around Democratic Socialists of America winning primaries was so ridiculous, where they would just be like, why are you running in the Democratic Party? Why are the voters voting for DSA candidates then? Why are there more self-identifying Democratic Socialists in the ranks of the Democratic Party? Perhaps it's because for years and years, liberals have skirted by claiming that they were far more quote unquote radical than they actually are. Perhaps that's the reason why so many people have felt duped. Everybody thinks a Chrysler is a beautiful car until a real Rolls Royce comes in town. I fucked that quote up. I butchered it, but that's pretty much it. Liberal Democrats have consistently lied about their advocacy on certain issues with no intention of actually following through. Now the Rolls Royce Phantom is here. To the Democratic Party's version of the Chrysler 300, constantly talking about, oh, we'll do a public option maybe one day, probably not, fuck off and die. There is now a real, robust defense for Medicare for all and higher degrees of socialization. The Rolls-Royce Phantom is here, and that is democratic socialism. So now, a lot of these establishment Democrats, instead of, going back to the drawing board and trying to identify why so many lifelong liberals, so many lifelong true blue Democrats, those who vote Democrat down ballot for the last multiple decades, why are they excited to vote for these candidates? Why are these candidates winning? They're winning because we and our policies are closer to the desires of the base than your policies are. Because your policies do not revolve around representing the interests of the masses. Your desires revolve around protecting the interest of corporations, their profits. It's that simple. I said this as well. I said in 3 years, we went from do you condemn Hamas to do you condemn Hassan? And Israel is still a belligerent entity that is causing destruction, goading Trump into war with Iran, and prominent Dems are focusing on a critic of Trump and Israel instead of Trump and Israel itself. Fools. And that is precisely what is going on. Okay? There are 35 House members and 6 senators who called on Marco Rubio and the Trump administration to free 20-year-old Sama Safi from Israeli detention. Rashida Tlaib led 40 members of Congress, including 6 senators, demanding Marco Rubio free 20-year-old American Sama Safi from Israeli detention. Doctors warn that Israel's detention is putting Sama at risk of progressive tissue injury and irreversible organ damage. Shout out to Chris Van Hollen, by the way, leading the charge on the Senate side. It was, much respect. And while that's happening, more establishment Democrats that have condemned me then have demanded that the Trump administration release an American citizen in Israeli prison. While many rush to condemn Hasan Piker for something he never said, Chris Van Hollen is the only 2028 contender in the Senate calling for Trump to free a 20-year-old American from Israeli detention. No Gallego, no Booker, no Kelly, no Murphy, no Ossoff, no Slotkin, no Warnock. And what they're mad about is this. Progressive Democrats are way more popular than establishment Democrats. Net favorability among Democrats for Mamdani is plus 54. For AOC is plus 47. Net favorability among Democrats for the 2 leaders of the party is plus 27 for Hakeem Jeffries and plus 10 for Schumer. This is not across the board. This is for the Democrats only. That means Democratic voters love Mamdani and AOC far more than they do Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. Perhaps there's a reason for it. How the fuck are Jeffries and Schumer that high? Because this is Democrats, man. What are you talking about? Someone's got to vote for them. The fuck? These are Democratic voters, chatter, that are being polled. This isn't across the board. Their approvals are underwater for all voters, but for Democrats, of course, they have to be above water. What are you, crazy? The only one that's underwater for Democrats is probably Fetterman.